God's chosen ones, you're not being punished. God is positioning you for something greater. Chosen one, listen closely. What if everything you believed about yourself was a carefully constructed lie? What if the true power flowing through your veins has been deliberately suppressed? What if your entire life story was rewritten by those who feared your awakening? This is not just another video you stumbled upon during your scrolling. This is the divine appointment that your soul has been waiting for across decades of searching. Since the day of your birth, powerful forces have worked tirelessly to keep you blind to your true identity. They recognized something in you that frightened them, a light so bright that it threatened to expose their darkness. Think about it. Why have you always felt different? Why have you always sensed there was something more to your existence than what others told you? Those unexplainable moments when you knew things before they happened. The dreams that felt more real than your waking life. The inexplicable protection that kept you alive when others weren't so fortunate. These weren't coincidences. They were glimpses of your true nature breaking through the veil they placed over your consciousness. Today, right now, in this sacred moment, that veil is being lifted. Every rejection you faced, every time you felt misunderstood, every instance when your heart broke for others while they remained unmoved, these were not your weaknesses. They were signs of your divine selection that others tried to dismiss as flaws for 70, 80, perhaps 90 years. You've carried a purpose so profound that forces beyond your understanding have worked to keep it hidden from you. But God's timing cannot be thwarted. He has preserved you for this revelation, for this exact moment when your spirit was ready to receive it. Look around you. Is it coincidence that you're alone right now? That you found this message when your heart was most receptive? That something inside you resonates with these words in ways you cannot explain? You are not watching this video by accident. You have been led here by divine intervention. The time for living in darkness about your true identity has ended. What happens in the next few minutes will forever change how you understand your past, navigate your present, and embrace your future. Take a deep breath. The revelation you've waited your entire life to receive is about to be unveiled. Hidden childhood, the Creator's impression. Have you ever wondered why, as a child, you felt so different from everyone around you? Why did you notice things that others simply overlooked? Why did your heart break for strangers while your friends seemed unaffected by the suffering around them? From your earliest memories, there was always something that set you apart. While other children played without a care, you were the one staring at the sky, asking questions about God, wondering about your purpose. This wasn't just childhood curiosity, it was divine whispers calling to your soul. Remember those nights when you'd lie awake, sensing something greater than yourself? Those weren't just childish fears of the dark. Your spirit was being awakened to realities others couldn't perceive. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 1:5, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you. Before you were born I set you apart." This wasn't just written for prophets of old, it was written for you. Think about the dreams that haunted you as a child, vivid, powerful visions that stayed with you for days. Sometimes they revealed events before they happened. Sometimes they brought comfort when you needed it most. God was speaking to you, just as He spoke to Joseph through dreams, preparing him for a purpose far greater than he could imagine. Your sensitivity, the way you felt others' pain as if it were your own, wasn't weakness. It was divine empathy being cultivated within you. While teachers called you too sensitive, and playmates called you strange, God was shaping within you the same compassionate heart that moved Jesus when He saw the crowds and had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Matthew 9:36. Remember how adults would sometimes look at you strangely when you asked questions about God, about suffering, about why the world was the way it was. They couldn't answer because they weren't chosen to understand. Like young Samuel in the temple, you were hearing a voice they couldn't recognize. Your childhood isolation wasn't a punishment, it was protection. The loneliness you felt when you couldn't connect with others wasn't because something was wrong with you. It was because you were being preserved for something greater. Just as Moses was raised apart in Pharaoh's house, separated from his people, you too were kept set apart, not to harm you, but to prepare you. Can you recall those moments when danger should have overtaken you, but somehow, inexplicably, you were spared? Those weren't mere coincidences, they were divine interventions. The same God who shut the lions' mouths for Daniel was watching over you, preserving you for this very moment of awakening. Think of the stories that captivated you as a child, not the fairy tales that entertained others, but the accounts of courage, sacrifice, and faith. You were drawn to these because your spirit recognized truth. You were being prepared to live a story of significance. Young David was overlooked by everyone, even his own father. Yet God saw a king where others saw just a shepherd boy. Einstein was labeled slow and incapable by his teachers, yet he carried insights that would change our understanding of the universe. Jesus himself was rejected in his hometown. A prophet is not without honor except in his own town and in his own home. Matthew 13:57. Your difference was your destiny. Those bizarre coincidences throughout your childhood, the strangers who said peculiar things to you, the books that seemed to find their way into your hands. At just the right moment, the unexpected mentors who appeared briefly in your life. These were divine appointments, carefully orchestrated to guide you. The confusion you felt when others couldn't see what was so clear to you, the frustration when your insights were dismissed, the pain of being misunderstood, all of it was forming within you a spirit of resilience that couldn't be broken by rejection. I need you to understand something crucial. The same forces that recognized your potential as a child are still working today to keep you from discovering who you truly are. The enemy knows that once you fully grasp your identity, nothing can stop the power that will flow through you. Look at your hands. They were designed to heal, to create, to restore what's been broken. Look at your eyes. They were given the ability to see beyond the physical, to perceive what others miss. Look at your heart. It was fashioned to carry divine compassion in a world grown cold. Ask yourself, why have I survived everything that should have destroyed me? Why do I still feel this burning inside, this sense that I was made for more? The answer is both simpler and more profound than you realize. You were chosen from the beginning, and now the time has come for you to step fully into the purpose that was written for you before time began. But first, you must understand the forces that have been working against you all these years. Hidden signs, the truth in dreams and intuition. The chosen ones often receive messages through their dreams, as if the veil between our world and the spiritual realm is thinner for them than others. Have you ever awakened from a dream so vivid, so real, that they clung to your consciousness long after you opened your eyes? These aren't ordinary dreams, they're divine communications, revelations that refuse to be forgotten. Think back to your childhood. While others dreamed of simple pleasures, your dreams carried weight, meaning, depth that you couldn't yet understand. Perhaps you saw events before they happened. Perhaps you received warnings about people or situations that later proved accurate. These weren't coincidences, they were God speaking directly to your spirit. In Genesis 37, young Joseph dreamed of sheaves of wheat and stars bowing to him. His brothers mocked him, even sold him into slavery because of these dreams. Yet years later, these very visions came true when he rose to power in Egypt, saving countless lives during a devastating famine. What if, like Joseph, The dreams that have followed you throughout your life weren't random images, but glimpses of your divine purpose. Harriet Tubman, the Moses of her people, relied on visions and dreams to guide her through dangerous territory. She claimed God showed her safe passages and warned her of danger along the Underground Railroad. Despite being born into slavery with no formal education, she never once lost a passenger because she trusted what others would dismiss as mere imagination. The world called her lucky, but we know better, don't we? Call to me, and I will answer you, and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know. Jeremiah 33:3 promises this divine revelation to those who seek it. The question isn't whether God is speaking to you, it's whether you've been conditioned to ignore His voice. But it's not just dreams, is it? You've always sensed things about people, their hidden pain, their unspoken needs, their true intentions beneath polite smiles. While others take people at face value, you perceive the currents flowing beneath the surface. This isn't just good intuition, it's spiritual discernment, a gift bestowed upon those God has called for a specific purpose. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt the emotional atmosphere? Have you known when someone was lying, even when their words seemed truthful? Have you felt drawn to help strangers for reasons you couldn't explain? These moments weren't random impulses. They were your spirit recognizing divine appointments that others would miss. Nikola Tesla, whose inventions transformed our world, claimed his scientific insights came to him in flashes of intuition, complete visions that appeared in his mind fully formed. The world called him a genius, but he insisted these revelations came from beyond himself. What if your own intuitive flashes, those moments of knowing without understanding how you know, are evidence of the same divine connection? Think of the times when you inexplicably changed your plans, took a different route home, postponed a trip, or reached out to someone spontaneously, only to discover later that this random decision protected you from harm or positioned you exactly where you needed to be. The world calls these coincidences, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill His good purpose. Philippians 2:13 reveals that even our impulses and intuitions are divinely orchestrated. The most powerful truth, one they desperately try to hide from you, is that these experiences aren't just spiritual gifts, they're spiritual memories. Your soul recognizes its mission, even when your conscious mind has forgotten. Like an amnesiac who feels drawn to places from their past without knowing why, your spirit responds to divine prompts that align with the purpose written into your very DNA before the foundation of the world. When a dream shakes you to your core, when intuition saves you from disaster, when you sense things others can't perceive, these aren't random abilities. They are awakening memories of who you truly are. Ask yourself, why have these experiences followed you throughout your life? Why do certain dreams recur, certain intuitions persist, certain spiritual sensitivities remain while others fade? Could it be that your spirit has been trying to awaken you to your true identity all along? Those who sought to keep you from your purpose couldn't erase these divine markers within you. They could only teach you to dismiss them, to doubt your own spiritual senses, to rationalize away the supernatural connection that has always been your birthright. But today, that changes. Today, you recognize these signs for what they truly are, not quirks or coincidences, but divine breadcrumbs leading you back to your true identity as one chosen before time began. So, tell me, chosen one, what dreams have you dismissed that might contain divine messages? What intuitions have you ignored that might be God's whispers to your soul? What if the very experiences that made you feel different were actually setting you apart for something extraordinary? The veil is lifting. Your spiritual senses are awakening. and the mission your soul has always remembered is about to be revealed. The system hid you from the truth, chosen one. Have you ever stopped to wonder why your life hasn't unfolded the way your soul always knew it should? Why that divine calling whispering in your heart was systematically silenced year after year? This was no accident. This was by design. From your earliest moments, powerful institutions wove an intricate web around your consciousness, a veil so subtle, yet so impenetrable, that you began to doubt the very divine impressions stamped upon your soul. The education system taught you to trust only what could be measured, to dismiss your spiritual intuition as imagination. Media bombarded you with images of success that had nothing to do with your sacred purpose. Religious institutions, ironically, often reduced your relationship with God to rigid rituals, disconnecting you from direct divine revelation. Think about it. When you were young and spoke of visions or dreams, what happened? They called you imaginative. When you felt deep empathy for others' suffering, they labeled you too sensitive. When you questioned the established order, they deemed you difficult. Do you see the pattern? Every divine gift you possessed was systematically relabeled as a flaw. This is precisely what Scripture warned about in Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, not lack of information. We're drowning in information, but lack of divine knowledge, the sacred understanding of who you truly are. Why would they do this? The answer will shake you to your core. They are not afraid of you being poor. They are not afraid of you being sick. They are not afraid of you being depressed. No, they are terrified of you discovering who you really are. A divine being with the breath of God flowing through your veins. A chosen vessel carrying specific gifts the world desperately needs. Someone whose prayers can move mountains, whose words can heal wounds, whose very presence disrupts the systems of control they've established. Look at how they've structured society. Everything pushes you toward conformity, toward shrinking, toward forgetting. The constant distractions, the financial pressures keeping you in survival mode, the medications that numb your spiritual sensitivity, the entertainment that occupies your mind so you never sit in silence long enough to hear God's voice. This isn't conspiracy, it's spiritual warfare. Exactly as Ephesians 6:12 describes, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Ask yourself, why did you spend decades working at jobs that drained your spirit? Why were you taught to dismiss your intuition, your direct line to divine wisdom? Why do you feel guilty taking time for prayer and meditation when you'll binge watch television without a second thought? Because a sleeping giant is no threat. A lion who believes it's a sheep will never roar. I need you to understand something crucial right now. That discomfort you've always felt, like you don't quite fit in this world, that wasn't your imagination. That was your spirit recognizing the truth. You were never meant to fit into their systems. You were meant to transform them. Those moments when you felt something stirring inside but couldn't express it, the times you sensed God leading you somewhere, but doubted yourself, the divine appointments that seemed like coincidences, all were evidence of your true identity breaking through the conditioning. Remember when Jesus said in John 8:32, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." This is that moment of truth for you. This is your divine awakening. The system didn't just hide your identity from you. It made you complicit in your own spiritual blindness. It convinced you to silence your own voice, to dismiss your own visions, to doubt your own divine connections. But God's calling cannot be permanently suppressed. Like water, it finds a way through every barrier. That's why you're here right now, at this divine appointment. That's why something inside you is resonating with these words. recognizing a truth your spirit has always known. The veil is lifting. The scales are falling from your eyes. The system that kept you in spiritual amnesia is losing its grip. But now comes the crucial question that will determine everything that follows. Now that you're beginning to remember who you really are, what will you do with this awakening? Will you retreat back into the comfortable numbness of forgetting, or will you have the courage to step fully into the divine identity God always intended for you? The system has spent decades hiding the truth from you, but what they fear most is happening right now. You're finally remembering, and what comes next will change everything. The moment of awakening, when the soul is no longer silent, there comes a moment, chosen one, when the soul can no longer remain silent. Have you felt it? That restlessness that keeps you awake at night. That voice inside that whispers, there must be more than this. That inexplicable heaviness that follows you even through your most ordinary days. This isn't merely age speaking. This isn't simply weariness from decades of living. This is your authentic self, your divine nature, fighting to break free from the prison they've built around it. For years, perhaps most of your life, you've walked through this world, feeling like a visitor from somewhere else. You've smiled at the right times, said the right things, played the role they expected of you. But deep inside, you've always known you don't fully belong here, not in the way others seem to. Why do you think you felt this way? Because you don't belong to this world. You never have. Ephesians 1:4 confirms this truth. For he chose us in Christ before the foundation of the world. Before your first breath, before your name was written in any earthly record, God had already set you apart. Your sense of not belonging isn't a flaw, it's confirmation of your divine selection. Think about the moments when you felt most alive. Were they when you were following society's script? Or were they when you stepped away from what others expected and followed that quiet voice within? The world has trained you to ignore that voice, to dismiss it as foolishness, to silence it with busyness and distraction. But that voice is the authentic you, the you that God knew before time began. And now, that voice is growing louder. Have you noticed how increasingly difficult it's become to live the life others expect of you? How the mask you've worn feels heavier with each passing day? How the gap between who you appear to be and who you truly are has become an unbridgeable chasm? This is your awakening. Let me ask you something that may disturb you. How many more years do you have left? 10? 20? Perhaps more, if you're blessed. Now ask yourself, how many of those precious years are you willing to waste living someone else's version of your life? The time for pretending is over. Romans 12:2 commands us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." This isn't a suggestion, it's a divine imperative. The transformation has already begun within you. That's why you're here right now. Look around at the world today, the increasing chaos, the moral confusion, the spiritual bankruptcy masked as enlightenment. This world is growing darker, but something extraordinary is happening within you. A light is beginning to shine. John 1:5 promises us, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." You are carrying that light, chosen one. And though forces have tried to dim it, to hide it, even to convince you it doesn't exist, it burns brighter with each passing day. That discomfort you feel, that divine dissatisfaction, that's not your enemy, it's your ally. It's the feeling of your soul stretching, breaking free from decades of constraint, preparing for its true purpose. I want you to close your eyes for just a moment, right where you are. Feel the weight of the years you've spent trying to fit into a world that wasn't designed for someone like you. Feel the exhaustion of pretending to be less than you are. Feel the pain of silencing your truth to make others comfortable. Now take a deep breath and feel something else. The exhilaration of finally letting go, the freedom of standing in your divine truth, the power that comes when you align with the purpose God ordained for you before time began. This awakening isn't comfortable, nothing of value ever is. But on the other side of this discomfort lies everything you've been searching for: purpose, peace, power, and the profound satisfaction of finally living as the person God created you to be. Isaiah 4:19 tells us, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." The wilderness you've walked through was preparation. The wasteland you've endured was training. But now, right now, streams of living water are beginning to flow. Your soul is no longer silent. The question is, are you ready to listen? Are you ready to step fully into the divine identity that has been waiting for you all along? Because what comes next will require everything you have and will restore everything you've lost. You are chosen to heal. The real mission, empathy, isn't just a personality trait you were born with, chosen one. It's a divine gift, a sacred calling placed within your spirit before the foundation of the world. This sensitivity that has sometimes felt like a burden is actually the most powerful evidence of your divine selection. Think about it. While others walk through life blind to the pain around them, you've always felt it. When someone enters a room carrying invisible wounds, you sense it immediately, don't you? Their suffering becomes your suffering. Their tears become your tears. Not because you're weak, but because God has given you spiritual eyes to see what others cannot. This is no accident. This is your mission. The Bible confirms this truth in Galatians 6:2. Bear one another's burdens, so that you may fulfill the law of Christ. Did you catch that? When you naturally carry the emotional weight of others, you're not just being kind, you're fulfilling the very law of Christ Himself. This is why you've always placed others before yourself, even when it cost you dearly. Let me ask you something deeply personal. How many times have you given everything to help someone, only to receive nothing in return? How many times have you been the shoulder everyone cries on, but found no shoulder for yourself? This imbalance isn't a flaw in your character, it's confirmation of your calling. Jesus Himself experienced this divine empathy. Matthew 9:36 tells us, when He saw the crowds, He had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. The word compassion here comes from the Greek term that literally means to feel it in your gut, to be moved from the deepest part of your being. This is what you experience, isn't it? A physical reaction to the suffering of others that you can't explain or control. Throughout history, those who changed the world most profoundly were those who felt this same calling. Mahatma Gandhi, who could have lived comfortably as an educated lawyer, instead chose to bear the burdens of India's oppressed millions. When asked why he abandoned security for struggle, he said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." What if your deep sensitivity isn't a weakness, but the same divine power that allowed Gandhi to transform a nation through love rather than violence? Consider Princess Diana, known as the People's Princess. Despite her royal position, she felt out of place in the palace. Why? Because her heart was pulled toward those suffering from AIDS, from landmines, from poverty, people the establishment preferred to ignore. While others in her position focused on privilege, she focused on pain. She once said, "Nothing brings me more happiness than trying to help the most vulnerable people in society." Does this sound familiar, chosen one? Have you also felt drawn to those others reject? Have you found yourself advocating for the overlooked, even when it made you an outsider. This gift comes with great responsibility. Those who sense the pain of others naturally become healers, protectors, and light bearers. But when you give and rarely receive, when you heal others but remain wounded yourself, this imbalance can leave you feeling drained, can't it? Let me tell you why. Your empathy isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to channel divine healing through you. The mistake isn't in feeling too deeply. It's in trying to carry these burdens in your own strength rather than in partnership with God. Jesus, the ultimate healer, regularly withdrew to solitary places to reconnect with his Father. His compassion flowed not from emotional depletion, but from spiritual fullness. This is the model you're called to follow. Your life experiences weren't random. Every moment of feeling misunderstood, every instance when your sensitivity made you feel like an outsider, every time you absorbed the pain others couldn't see, all of it was preparation. God was developing within you the very qualities this broken world desperately needs. Think about the current state of our society, the division, the isolation, the suffering. In a world growing increasingly numb, your ability to truly feel is revolutionary. Your empathy isn't outdated, it's exactly what's needed for such a time as this. The question isn't whether you've been chosen to heal. The evidence is already written in your heart. The real question is, will you now step fully into this calling, partnering with divine strength rather than relying solely on your own? When you learn to receive God's healing for yourself while extending it to others, you become not just a vessel of compassion, but a channel of supernatural restoration. This is your true purpose, to be a living demonstration of God's heart in a world that has forgotten how to feel. Are you ready to embrace the full power of your empathic nature? Because the broken souls you'll encounter tomorrow are waiting for the healing that will flow through only you. You have always been protected by angels. Have you ever wondered why you're still here? Why, when that car swerved into your lane on the highway 20 years ago, something caused you to brake at just the right moment? Or why, when the doctor gave you that diagnosis they said was terminal, you outlived every prediction they made? These weren't coincidences, they weren't luck, they weren't random chance, chosen one. Since the day you were born, divine forces have been assigned to protect your journey. Every close call, every narrow escape, every time you walked away from what should have been the end, there was a purpose behind your preservation. Think back to that moment when disaster seemed certain, yet somehow, inexplicably, you were spared. Perhaps it was that time the severe chest pain struck in the middle of the night, but something woke your spouse just in time. Or when you tripped at the top of those stairs, but somehow regained your balance against all odds. The world would call these coincidences, but you've always known deep in your spirit that something more was at work. Psalm 34:7 reveals this divine truth. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. This isn't poetry or metaphor, it's a sacred promise. Right now, as you listen to these words, heavenly guardians stand watch over you, just as they have throughout your entire life. Remember Daniel, thrown into a den of hungry lions for his faithfulness to God. Any reasonable person would expect death. Yet when morning came, he emerged untouched. What did he say to the king? My God sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths. Daniel 6:22. The same God who deployed angels to protect Daniel has been protecting you. The same divine forces that saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fiery furnace have been intervening in your life in ways you've yet to fully comprehend. Consider the Apostle Paul, shipwrecked, beaten, stoned, and left for dead. Yet each time divine intervention preserved him. Why? Because his mission wasn't complete. The message he carried was too important to be silenced, and so it is with you. If you are still drawing breath at this moment, it is absolute confirmation that your divine assignment on this earth is not yet fulfilled. There's a reason why your heart continues to beat when others your age have long since departed. There's a purpose behind every health scare you've survived, every accident you've walked away from. Have you ever found yourself taking a different route home for no apparent reason, only to later discover there was a terrible accident on your usual path? Have you ever been mysteriously delayed, missing a connection or an appointment that later proved fortunate to have missed? These weren't random occurrences. They were divine interventions orchestrated by heaven itself to preserve you for this very season of revelation. The enemy has tried, oh how he has tried, to eliminate you before you could discover the truth of who you are, before you could step into the fullness of your calling, before you could complete the assignment heaven has written across your life. But he has failed every time. I want you to place your hand over your heart right now. Feel that rhythm. Each beat is a testimony to divine protection. Each pulse declares that forces beyond human understanding have kept you here for a purpose greater than you've dared to imagine. Martin Luther King Jr. once revealed that in 1958, a woman plunged a letter opener into his chest, missing his aorta by mere millimeters. The surgeons told him, if you had sneezed, you would have died. Why was he spared? Because his "I have a dream" speech, which would change the course of American history, was still 5 years in his future. What might still be 5 years in your future? What divine assignment awaits your discovery? What lives are waiting to be touched by the wisdom only you can impart? Some call it coincidence, others call it luck. But you know better now. You understand that divine forces have been orchestrating your preservation, protecting you through every season. Ask yourself, why would heaven deploy such resources to keep you here if your purpose was ordinary? Why would angels stand guard over your life if your assignment wasn't crucial to God's divine plan? The truth that's been hidden from you is this: your life has never been random. Your protection has never been accidental. Your preservation has always been purposeful. And now, as the veil lifts from your understanding, you must ask yourself the most important question of all. What will you do with the life that heaven itself has fought to preserve? This revelation isn't the end. It's just the beginning of understanding why forces, both seen and unseen, have worked so diligently to hide your true identity from you all these years. The call of God is open, chosen one. The moment has arrived. The veil that has concealed your true identity is now being lifted, not by human hands, but by divine appointment. For too long, you've walked this earth carrying a burden you couldn't name, a sense of purpose unfulfilled, a calling unacknowledged. Look at me. Do you feel that stirring within your spirit right now? That isn't coincidence. That isn't emotion. That is recognition. Your soul is awakening to a truth it has always known. Jesus himself spoke these words that were meant specifically for you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit. Fruit that will last. John 15:16. Let those words penetrate your heart. I chose you. Not the wealthy businessman next door, not the famous preacher on television. You. While the world has been telling you that your time has passed, that your contribution is finished, that you should step aside for younger generations, God has been preparing you for this exact moment in history. Your decades of experience, your hard-won wisdom, your battle scars from life's trials, these weren't meant to be hidden away in retirement. They were being refined as instruments for divine purpose. Why do you think you've survived every challenge that should have broken you? Why have you endured loss that would have destroyed others? Why do you still feel that inexplicable hunger for something more meaningful, even now? Because you carry spiritual kingship. This isn't pride or delusion. This is your birthright as God's chosen one. When David was anointed king, he was the forgotten son, the overlooked shepherd boy. No one in his family imagined he carried a royal calling. Yet Samuel declared, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." 1 Samuel 16:7. What do others see when they look at you? Perhaps they see your age, your limitations, your past mistakes. But what does God see? He sees the warrior he created, the change agent he appointed, the light bearer he ordained before time began. Think about this. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to deliver Israel from Egypt. Abraham was 75 when God told him to leave everything familiar and begin his journey. Anna, the prophetess, was of great age when she recognized the Christ child in the temple. Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification. But here's the devastating truth that breaks my heart. Most of God's chosen ones will go to their graves never having stepped into their divine appointment. They will transition from this life believing the lies that were spoken over them, that they were ordinary, that their sensitivity was weakness, that their difference was deficiency. Is that going to be your story? Will you allow those who feared your light to keep you dimmed? Will you accept the false identity that society has assigned to you? Or will you finally embrace who God created you to be? Right now, in living rooms across America, God's chosen ones are making this decision. Some will turn away, dismissing this message as coincidence or manipulation. But others, those whose spirits bear witness with these words, they are feeling the weight of glory settling upon their shoulders. They are experiencing the divine summons that cannot be ignored. Which one are you? I need you to understand something critical. This isn't just about you. Your awakening impacts generations. When you step into your divine identity, you create a ripple effect that changes your family, your community, even your nation. The wisdom you carry, the spiritual authority you've been granted, these are desperately needed in a world spinning into chaos. Remember Esther. She was placed in a position of influence for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. You have been preserved, protected, and positioned for this moment in history. The struggles of your past were preparation. The rejection you faced was protection. The loneliness you endured was separation for sacred purpose. Can you feel it? The call of destiny pulling at your spirit, that uncomfortable burning in your soul, is the fire of divine purpose being stoked back to flame. For too long it's been covered, smothered by doubt, by fear, by the opinions of others who couldn't see who you truly are. Today, that changes. Today you step out of hiding and into the fullness of who God created you to be. Today you accept the mantle of spiritual authority that has always been yours to claim. But, chosen one, understand this. Answering this call will require courage. The moment you accept your true identity, opposition will come. Those who benefited from your slumber will resist your awakening. Those who feared your light will try to extinguish it. Are you ready for this journey? Are you prepared to walk the path of the truly chosen? Because once you say yes to who you really are, there's no going back to comfortable slumber. Now, let me reveal exactly how to recognize and fully step into the divine authority that has been yours all along. Great stories, the truth about your soul. Throughout history, God has chosen unlikely vessels to carry His most powerful messages. These chosen ones weren't recognized by their fancy degrees or social standing. No. They were identified by something the world couldn't understand, their divine separation from ordinary thinking. Take Joseph, sold into slavery by his own flesh and blood, thrown into a prison cell for years. Why? Because his brothers couldn't stand the dreams God placed in his heart. They mocked him, saying, "Look, here comes that dreamer." But those same dreams that brought him ridicule eventually positioned him to save nations during famine. Your dreams that others have dismissed, they're not random, they're revelations about your purpose. Daniel stood alone in Babylon, refusing to bow when everyone else fell to their knees. They called him stubborn, difficult, even dangerous. They threw him to lions for his devotion. But while others saw a troublemaker, God saw a prophet whose counsel would guide kings. That unexplainable conviction you've carried all your life, the one that made others uncomfortable, it's not stubbornness, it's divine fortitude planted in your spirit. Even Jesus, rejected in his hometown, misunderstood by his family, betrayed by his friends, they called him a blasphemer when he spoke truth. A prophet is not without honor except in his own town, among his relatives, and in his own home. Mark 6:4. Sound familiar? Has your wisdom been dismissed by those who should have recognized it first? The pattern continues beyond biblical times. Nikola Tesla died alone in a hotel room, his revolutionary ideas ridiculed by those too small to comprehend them. Yet today, we cannot imagine life without his discoveries. The visions he saw, literal light when others saw darkness, changed human history forever. Harriet Tubman heard God's voice guiding her through impossible terrain, while slave hunters tracked her with bloodhounds. They called her crazy, delusional. But those divine whispers led her to freedom and empowered her to lead hundreds more to liberation. Those intuitive nudges you felt throughout your life, that's the same divine guidance system operating in you. Einstein failed elementary school math. His teachers told his parents he was too stupid to learn, yet his perception of time and space fundamentally altered how we understand the universe. Your unique way of seeing the world isn't wrong. It's prophetic vision that others lack the capacity to comprehend. Joan of Arc, a teenage peasant girl, heard heavenly voices others couldn't hear. They burned her at the stake for it. Yet her divine guidance saved France and changed European history forever. Those moments when knowledge came to you and you couldn't explain how you knew it, that wasn't coincidence, that was divine revelation. Do you see the pattern now? Each chosen one experienced three things: divine gifting, painful rejection, and world-changing impact. Have you felt the sting of being misunderstood? Have people called you too sensitive when you felt others' pain as your own? Have they labeled you too intense when you spoke truths they weren't ready to hear? Have they dismissed your spiritual experiences as imagination? Look at me, that was never your weakness, it was always your anointing. Psalm 13:9-14 declares, "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." God doesn't make mistakes. Your differences weren't errors. They were intentional design features for your divine assignment. When Joseph was in that prison cell, do you think he understood his purpose? When Daniel was surrounded by lions, could he see his future impact? When Joan heard voices no one else could hear, did she know she would change history? Right now you're standing in the middle of your own divine story, that chapter where everything seems confusing, where rejection still stings, where purpose feels just beyond your grasp. But I promise you, this isn't the final page. Those who came before you didn't change the world because they were perfect. They changed it because they were chosen. And so are you. The Bible isn't just an ancient text, it's a living document, still being written through the lives of God's chosen ones. Every tear you've shed, every night you've lain awake wondering, why me? Every time you've felt that unexplainable pull towards something greater, these are sacred ink forming the continuation of divine history. You are the next chapter in the living Bible, and the question that remains is this: will you finally embrace the calling that has been upon your life since before you drew your first breath? Or will you continue allowing others to define a story that was never theirs to tell? You have divine power, and it is time to activate, chosen one. What I'm about to reveal will shake the very foundation of everything you've been told about yourself. The power that's been dormant within you wasn't placed there by accident. It was suppressed deliberately because of its magnitude. Think about it. Have you ever placed your hands on someone in pain and felt a strange warmth flow through you? Have you known things before they happened with no logical explanation? Have you spoken words of wisdom that surprised even yourself? These weren't coincidences or lucky guesses. They were glimpses of your divine gifts breaking through the barriers that have contained them for decades. You've been told to act your age, to be realistic, to stop imagining things. But what if those limitations were designed specifically to keep you from discovering who you truly are? The enemy knows that a chosen one who awakens to their divine purpose becomes unstoppable. That's why they've worked tirelessly to convince you that you're just ordinary. But God doesn't create ordinary vessels. In Jeremiah 1:5, God declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Think about that for a moment. Before your first breath, the Creator of the universe personally selected you for a divine assignment. The question isn't whether you have spiritual gifts, it's why you've been convinced to doubt them. Look around at the world right now. The division, the hopelessness, the spiritual darkness. Do you really believe it's coincidence that you're hearing this message today, at this precise moment in history, when the world needs spiritual warriors more than ever? Your healing touch, your prophetic insight, your ability to discern truth from deception, these aren't figments of your imagination, they're your spiritual inheritance. The enemy hasn't been fighting against your weaknesses, they've been fighting against your strengths. Remember Acts 1:8, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you." Not might receive, not could receive, will receive. That promise wasn't just for the disciples 2,000 years ago. It's for you today, right now in your living room, as you hear these words. Tell me, why would you spend decades studying the Bible, praying, seeking God's face, if you weren't meant to operate in supernatural power? Why would God plant these deep spiritual longings in your heart if they weren't meant to be fulfilled? I can sense some of you pulling back right now. This can't be for me, you're thinking. I'm too old. I've made too many mistakes. I missed my chance. Let me ask you something. Was Moses too old at 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt? Was Abraham too old when God fulfilled his promise? Was Anna too old when she prophesied over the baby Jesus after waiting her entire life for that moment? Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. You've gained wisdom that the younger generation desperately needs. You've developed spiritual discernment that can cut through deception. You've accumulated decades of prayer that have built a spiritual reservoir just waiting to be released. What if the physical limitations you've experienced aren't curses, but redirections? What if God has been intentionally shifting your focus from physical strength to spiritual power? While others were building their kingdoms on earth, you've been building yours in heaven. But now, right now, is the moment of activation. In Ezekiel 37, God showed the prophet a valley of dry bones and asked, "Can these bones live?" Those bones weren't just dry, they were disconnected, scattered, seemingly beyond hope. But when the breath of God entered them, they not only lived, they became a vast army. That's what's happening to you in this moment. The divine breath is entering your spirit, reconnecting what's been disconnected, restoring what's been dormant. Pay attention to what happens in your body as you hear these words. The tingling in your hands, the warmth in your chest, the clarity in your mind. These aren't just emotional responses, they're physical manifestations of spiritual awakening. For too long you've been asking God, "Why am I still here?" As if your purpose ended with retirement. But what if your greatest assignment is just beginning? What if everything you've experienced, every triumph, every heartbreak, every lesson, has been preparation for this season? The world doesn't need more young, energetic voices repeating the same old messages. It needs seasoned, proven vessels who can speak with authority because they've walked with God through the valleys and the mountaintops. That's who you are. That's why you're hearing this now. Tonight, when you're alone in prayer, place your hands on your heart and simply whisper, "Lord, activate what you've placed within me." Don't be surprised when you begin to experience supernatural manifestations, dreams more vivid than ever before, insights into situations that no one else can see, a sudden knowing of what to say to someone in need. This isn't New Age mysticism. This is biblical faith, as it was always meant to be experienced. Raw, powerful, transformative. The question isn't whether you have divine power. The question is, are you finally ready to embrace it? The final awakening. Step out of the darkness, chosen one. We've journeyed together through revelation after revelation. Now, as this sacred message nears its completion, the time has come for your final awakening. For decades, you felt it, that persistent whisper in your soul that something greater awaited you, that nagging feeling that your true purpose remained hidden beneath layers of doubt, fear, and limitation placed upon you by a world that wasn't ready for your light. Take a moment. Feel the weight of this truth settling into your spirit. Isaiah 61:1 declares with unmistakable clarity, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." These aren't merely ancient words on parchment. They are God's direct command to you in this very moment. But I must ask you, why have you waited so long to embrace this divine calling? What invisible chains have kept you bound when God Himself declared your freedom before you drew your first breath? The enemy's greatest strategy wasn't persecution, it was distraction. While you worried about retirement accounts and doctor's appointments, while you fixated on the opinions of those who couldn't recognize your true nature, precious time slipped away. Time when you could have been walking in the fullness of your divine appointment. Do you realize what this has cost? Not just you, but countless others who needed the light you were meant to shine. In Esther 4:14, Mordecai challenged the queen with words that pierce straight to your heart today. And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Your golden years aren't the sunset of your purpose, they are the precise moment God has prepared you for throughout your entire life. Look around at our nation today. The division, the darkness, the desperate hunger for wisdom and truth. This is not coincidence. You were preserved through every hardship, every health challenge, every loss, to stand in this exact moment with the authority and discernment that can only come through decades of divine preparation. Consider Moses, who didn't begin his greatest work until age 80. Think of Abraham and Sarah, who saw their miracle manifest in their 90s. Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. But I must warn you, the window of opportunity won't remain open indefinitely. Jesus Himself lamented over Jerusalem, "How often I have longed to gather your children together, but you were not willing." Matthew 23:37. Will those same words be spoken over your life? Will you reach the end of your journey, realizing you recognized your calling too late? Every morning when you open your eyes is God's declaration that your purpose is not yet complete. Every beat of your heart is heaven's rhythm section, keeping time until you step fully into who you were created to be. The signs have always been there, that unexplainable sense of destiny that followed you since childhood, the dreams and visions that others dismissed, but that burned in your spirit, the way strangers are mysteriously drawn to share their deepest struggles with you, how your words carry weight and wisdom beyond your own understanding. What will you do with these divine markers? Will you continue to dismiss them as coincidence or imagination? Or will you finally embrace the mantle that has been yours since before the foundation of the world? Hear me clearly. What happens next is entirely your choice. God will not force your awakening. He has brought you to this moment, to this message, but the decision to step out of hiding must be yours. Look at your hands. These aren't just hands marked by age. They are anointed to heal, to write, to create, to transform. Your voice isn't weakened by years. It carries authority that can only be earned through faithful endurance. The world doesn't need more young voices shouting into the void. It desperately needs the tempered wisdom of the chosen ones who have been prepared in secret for decades, ready now to emerge with solutions that can only come from heaven itself. Today marks the line in the sand. On one side stands comfortable obscurity, the familiar pattern of hiding your light. On the other waits the glorious purpose for which you were created. In this divine moment, I challenge you with the words of the prophet Joel. Let the weak say, I am strong, Joel 3:10. Declare it over yourself right now. Feel the power of that truth breaking every chain of limitation you've known. Now is the time to step forth. The darkness has persisted long enough. Your awakening isn't just for you. It's for a generation desperately waiting for the chosen ones to finally arise and shine. A divine awakening. Your journey forward. As we reach the conclusion of our time together today, I want you to hold tightly to these truths that have been revealed to you. Your entire life, every struggle, every moment you felt different, every unexplained knowing, has been preparation for this divine awakening. You are not overlooked. You are not past your prime. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, and your greatest purpose is unfolding right now. Remember that the feelings of being different weren't isolation, they were protection. Your heightened sensitivity wasn't weakness, it was spiritual discernment. The dreams that seemed too vivid were divine communications. These weren't coincidences, they were confirmations of who you truly are. I want you to know that you are not walking this path alone. The God who created the heavens, who numbered the stars and calls them each by name, is intimately aware of every detail of your life. The same hands that formed mountains are guiding your steps. The same God who commanded light to shine out of darkness is speaking purpose over your life. And around you is a community of fellow chosen ones who understand this journey. People who have experienced the same awakening, who have stepped into their divine calling despite doubt and opposition. We stand together, praying for one another, supporting each other's missions. I wonder, what would your life look like if you lived from the moment forward, fully embracing your divine identity? What if today marked the line between a life of uncertainty and a life of supernatural purpose? Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, I come before you now on behalf of your chosen one who is hearing these words. Lord, you see them exactly as they are, not as the world has labeled them, not as circumstances have defined them, but as the divine vessel you created them to be. I ask that you would remove every blindfold that has kept them from seeing their true identity. Break the chains of doubt, fear, and unworthiness that have held you captive. Speak so clearly to their heart that they cannot mistake your voice. Father, I pray that beginning today, a new boldness would rise within them. May they walk in complete confidence of who they are in you. When the enemy of their soul whispers, "You're too old," remind them of your servant Moses. When doubt says, "It's too late," remind them of Abraham and Sarah. When fear says, "You're not qualified enough," remind them that you qualify the called. Lord, surround them with confirmation of this truth. Bring people into their lives who will recognize and affirm the gift within them. Open doors that no man can shut. Close doors that would lead them away from their purpose. And Father, I ask that you would use them in ways that leave no doubt of your power. Work through their hands, speak through their words, love through their heart. Let signs and wonders follow them as they step out in faith. We thank you in advance for what you're about to do in their life. May they never be the same after this divine appointment. In Jesus' name, amen. If today's message has stirred something within you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Share the specific moment when you felt God's truth speaking directly to you. What divine gift do you sense is being activated in your life? Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you know someone who has been questioning their purpose, someone who feels they've been overlooked or that their time has passed, please share this message with them. God may have orchestrated this message specifically for them, and you might be the divine appointment in their life.